My name is Julie Michelle Wilson, and I will be sharing this story of the Caldwell family. They are from Northern Ireland, Fermanagh, and I was born and raised here in the United States, and my family many generations ago were I would say very influential in the Fermanagh area. They have Castle Caldwell, which is in Belleek, and I was able to go visit just a few months ago, and anyone can visit the castle. It is a protected park, so you can go and stroll along and see the church or the chapel and the main house, and it's beautiful, and so I'd highly recommend it. My family was residents there at the castle around 1662, and they had many generations at the castle. Then it was eventually handed down to a gentleman called John Caldwell Bloomfield. He inherited the estate and the castle, and this was during at the beginnings of the famine, and he noticed that a lot of his tenants in Belleek were not able to find employment, and so he did a survey of the minerals in the soil from Castle Caldwell and surrounding areas, and he found that they were conducive to pottery making. And so he, within a couple of years, founded Belleek Pottery. And it was a way for the tenants to make a good living and provided for a lot of families during that time. And it's still standing now, and you can go and have tours of the pottery, and it's beautiful. They're porcelain. They're known for their high quality porcelain, and from start to finish there are usually 16 hands that touch every piece of pottery, and it's been exported all over the world. And for the pottery to be made, he had the railroad. He worked with the engineers and was able to get the railroad up north. So I think it's a really cool story because you can still go today and visit and have a cup of tea, and so all are welcome. And so I'm very proud knowing more about the famine and knowing that my family tried to help in the way that they could. So after many generations, my family came to the United States, and I'm very proud of our history that we've had here in the United States. We have several notable stories. Family members, one set of family members were on the Titanic, and they were thankful survivors on Lifeboat 13. And I was just in Belfast and was able to pull up their name in the registry, and that was really exciting. And the family stories that we have of when they were on the boat that rescued them, how my family members were one of the few intact families that survived. So they were talking about how when they were on the boat, they were seeing other family members run around, and they couldn't find the rest of their family, and how difficult that was, and being out in the lifeboat. And their lifeboat was actually in the movie Titanic, Lifeboat 13. It's the one that came down, and there was another lifeboat coming down on top, and it almost crushed their boat. But thankfully it was pushed out just soon enough so they were not capsized. And in the movie you hear a baby crying out in the distance, and that actually happened, and that was my relative. It was a baby, and he was just really cold, and so he cried the whole time, and so they actually included that in the movie, so I think that was pretty cool. So that's that part of my family. We have many statesmen in the family, one of them being John Caldwell Calhoun, and this is him. There is a large statue of him in the United States Capitol building, which anyone who comes here to the Washington, D.C. area and has a tour, he's in the rotunda, and he represents one of the states. Each state has a representative that they select to represent their state in the United States Congress or in the Capitol building, and he is the chosen representative, and he's there, so come on down and have a photo with him. And there's quite a few lovely portraits of him. One is in the National Portrait Gallery here in Washington, D.C. as well. So he was a vice president under 2 separate presidents, and he had many other well-known posts and positions within the United States government, and we're super proud to have him in the family. We also have quite a few religious figures. Oh, I'm sorry. We also have a lot of religious figures. One was very well known when the United States was getting its rights and separating from Britain, and he was known for preaching with his Bible and his weapon. And he had quite a large reception, and he was eventually assassinated, unfortunately, and so was his wife, and the children were taken in by George Washington, and one of the children was adopted by General Lafayette and taken back to France and educated, and then when the Capitol was burning, he actually collected all of the important papers and saved them from the fire. So there's a portrait of him at what is it called? What is it called? The Chief Justice, Supreme Court, at the Supreme Court. So he also was the pallbearer for Abraham Lincoln. And so if you look up on the pallbearer sheet, you'll see a Caldwell. So it's pretty cool to think that, you know, the Caldwells who came from Ireland were eventually, you know, taken care of by George Washington and helped shape the United States, and eventually, you know, became, you know, very influential in the government here. Very proud of them. My other portion of the Caldwell family relocated to a small town called Paint Bank, Virginia. And it was known as Paint Bank, Virginia because the banks of the rivers and creeks had red clay, and the Cherokee Indians used to use it for war paint. And so they settled in the mountains of Virginia, and one of my ancestors was the first student at Virginia Tech, and there's a big statue of him on the campus. And a few generations prior to him, they created a church where the foundation was laid for 2 universities, Hampton-Sydney College and Washington and Lee University. So I feel like the Caldwells have been very well represented in many different facets within the United States.